This podcast is recorded on stolen and unceded Aboriginal land.
We acknowledge the First Nations and elders of this country and join their calls for justice. Always was, always will be Aboriginal land.
Can I give you a slogan to work with?
Go.
What about this? Onya Sonya. You can use that. That's my gift to you. Onya Sonya!
Onya Sonya!
And from then on, Onya Sonya was the go-to slogan.
Can we say it?
Yeah.
Onya Sonya!
Australia is getting Onya Sonya fever. Even Fat Cat is on board.
You have so much support in the entire Better Homes and Gardens team, and we want you to win just so we can all say, Onya Sonya.
All right, let's do it, folks. It's another bonus. This is our final Meet the Candidate episode for election 2025. We've been meeting fantastic Greens candidates from all across the country, and we are bringing it home with my friend and yours, Sonya Semmens. She's back on the show. She's the Greens candidate for the seat of Macnamara. She was our candidate for Higgins in 2022.
True.
She is a mum. She's a renter. She's worked in the charity sector, and she is working her ass off to turn Macnamara green. Hi, Sonya. Thanks very much for being on the show.
Hey, hi, Tom. Hi, Emerald. Thank you so much for having me. R.I.P. Higgins. Yep.
Yeah.
Shout out to the
Pour
real
one
one.
out.
Yeah.
That's right.
What is that lady? Who is it? Michelle
Ananda Raja.
Yeah, what's she doing? What
I
happens
don't
to
know.
her?
She's an immunologist. I think she might go back to immunology.
I'm sure she'll be
There'll
fine.
more
I wasn't
work-
worried
more
about her
work in that.
personally.
Yeah,
Yeah. And a landlord.
yeah, that's true. She's her income's fine, Tom. Don't worry.
She's going to spend more time with her properties. That's good. How are you? We're recording this on Good Friday, but of course, yes, by the time people are hearing this, we're in pre-poll. People are already voting. We're in the final 2 weeks before May 3rd and Election Day. How are you? How's your team? What the hell's going on?
Yeah, we're good. So it's been a long year. And we have, I keep joking that we're like on our second lap of the electorate because we've like door knocked our way from one end to the other and back again. So we're highly competitive with wills. We're like 75,000 doors under our belt and like everyone just working so
That's
hard.
wild.
Yeah, so hard. And I think it's 20,000 conversations-ish or 15,000 meaningfuls as we colloquially, the MIs as we call them. And tiring but really wonderful. It just feels like exactly what we are here to do, which is to have conversations with our neighbours. Yeah, so even over this Easter weekend, we're still out there door knocking, talking to people, and it's such an interesting seat that gets spicier all the time. So there's a lot to talk about.
To talk about. Can you just remind us how close it is for people to know? Because there's been a redistribution since 2022 as well. How many people need to change their vote? How close are the Greens to winning Macnamara?
So if you've been following along at home, Macnamara has had 3 big campaigns, especially the last one where then candidate Steph Hodgins-May, now the marvellous Senator Steph, she got within 298 votes of winning the seat. I like to joke, it's like it's just one street. I think it's my street. I live in Middle Park. It's definitely my street. And which is, so everybody knows it's incredibly close. And the significant thing about that is that it took like a week or more for them to count out and then recount out all of the votes. So the seat didn't know the way that it was falling for a really long time. And voters remember that experience. And so one of the biggest obstacles to people voting Green is and can be you won't win. And that I feel like Steph has just obliterated that obstacle for us by making it so obvious that this seat is a progressive seat. They call it a safe non-Liberal seat, which is sort of what it was until very recently.
Yeah.
Yes, interesting.
Yeah.
So, and what are people talking about? I mean, there are some obvious things that people talk about, and a lot of the news coverage for Macnamara has been dominated by questions around the Israel-Gaza conflict and allegations of anti-Semitism, which we can get into in a moment. But what else are people talking about? What else is it top of mind for the people of Macnamara in terms of the election and the big issues affecting their lives?
Yeah. Well, so I'd say that the common theme that comes up is housing in our electorate. And over half of the households here rent. So it's after the major cities, it's one of the most renting electorates in the country. And like we noticed just from door knocking that, I've knocked on people's doors. They were carrying furniture down the stairs because they'd had such an enormous rent hike that they were moving out because they couldn't afford it. And I spoke with a guy at Southbank just the other day who'd had a 60% rent hike on his apartment in Southbank.
60%?
That's massive, right? That's so big. I know, yeah. So average, I think, rent increase is 38% across the electorate, which is enormous amounts for people that are already really tight. So And housing's kind of the pointy end of the cost of living conversation. And obviously cost of living is a really, really big one. And the other thing that we found interesting, and maybe it's because there's also quite a bit of wealth and education in the electorate, is that climate and environment are still really big issues for people. So that I feel like those two things compete for the number one theme that comes up. And sometimes, in some places, climate and environment, especially, like there are people changing their vote about salmon. So it is,
Wow.
it's still a really big
In
issue for
Macnamara,
people.
people are voting on the salmon issue?
Yeah, it came up at the forum. The forum was packed. The Climate and Environment Forum was packed, as always. We had Bob come here, and I think we packed out the St Kilda Town Hall with people who just came to see Bob speak.
Wow.
The great man, and then we took him to Talangi and put him in a river. Yeah, so it's a really greeny area. And I think a lot of that is the work that's been done by Steph's campaigns before. And part of it is we're also very outdoorsy. So we're sort of stuck between Albert Park Lake and the Port Phillip Bay. And it is a very outdoorsy community. There's a lot of people outside, and we're impacted by especially climate-related water issues. So the Elwood Canal floods all the time. A lot of this electorate is actually a flood zone. 10,000 years ago, it was a wetland. And now, so I think there's like 16,500 homes that are at risk of coastal inundation. And they notice that because their housing insurance has doubled.
Oh, wow.
And so it sort of hits people both existentially and materially.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is the thing I often, when there is this false dichotomy that's presented, particularly by the media, of cost of living versus climate as issues that people can care about. And I just think it's very important that we continually reiterate that climate change is a cost of living issue in so many ways, whether it's like fresh food affordability or, insurance for sure.
Yeah.
Or energy costs,
absolutely.
right? Like
Or
our
energy costs,
grid
of
and
course,
approach
yeah.
Yeah, for sure. That's right, exactly. Gas bills comes up a lot individually, which is great because it stimulates such an important conversation about our relationship to fossil fuel export, gas export, and the Greens. Yeah.
Here's a question for you. This might be something that we all face as Greens. Do you get much pushback from people in terms of like converting gas top cookers to induction stove? The impression I get from a lot of people is like, I know it's better for the environment, but I just think election, they're just shitty. They're just shitty things to cook on. And there's been big incentives in Victoria from the state government to try and get people to convert. I'm looking at doing it for my apartment, but everyone I talk to, and my personal trader, who's my access to like normie politics, no biggie. I go to the gym. He's just like, I like the Greens. I care about the environment, but mate, bro, I cannot cook on an induction top.
No, I think electrification's a bit sexy here in Macnamara, actually.
Okay.
We're like early adopters. So remember the Tesla wave that happened 3 years ago? We were we were the foamy bit of the Tesla wave.
Wow.
So I would say we're highly pro-electrification in this area. And I don't know why it is. I think, again, I don't know, maybe it is education. Maybe it is, we have the privilege to be able to make those choices.
It's a higher median income, right? Yeah, I think it's I've got here from The Guardian, $2,064 was the median household weekly income, which puts you at 33 out of all 150 electorates. So people in Macnamara, broadly speaking, are doing okay. Are people Tesla's getting vandalized on the streets of Macnamara?
I see a lot of those stickers. I see a lot of those.
I bought this before we knew.
And even if I put it on socials, because there's a lot of people are talking about pop-up charges for their EVs. Even if I put it on socials, there's always commentary about, boo, that guy.
Yeah.
So,
Boo Tesla.
Sorry, neighbours.
This is not the most important conversation, but isn't it important to distinguish between a traditional electric cooktop, which generally sucks, and an induction stove, I believe, is different. So someone may correct me on this, but I think that induction is actually almost as good as gas, whereas it's true, like, I'm going to be honest, sometimes I think, wow, mum's gas stove is a much more pleasant cooking experience than my electric stove. But anyway, that's
true. And I feel as a renter that I'm just thankful I have a stove. I'm just so thankful.
That's right, and it works.
I'm just like,
wow.
Thank you. Like, for a while we didn't, and now we do again. And
amazing. What a kind landlord you have.
I live above my landlord, actually, and I love her.
Don't say that. What are you, crazy? What are you?
She's cute. Yeah. Yeah.
I guess that can be cute.
She hasn't lifted the rent. That's why we have this beautiful
That is
relationship.
cute. That's
It's
extremely
super
cute to not
cute.
live
I know.
that.
Yeah, I know. That's so hot. Yeah, I love it. Bless her.
All right, now we talked a fair bit about Macnamara on the weekly show a couple of weeks ago because, yes, in the news was the story about yourself being invited to, then disinvited to a community forum, which is being hosted by some Jewish community groups. There's some of those groups objected to your presence being there because of their perception of the Greens party and saying that they don't like the Greens, it's not good enough. Now, my understanding is did you still go to the forum in question? Tell us about what you think about that whole episode and the kind of fallout from it, I suppose.
Yeah. We did still go. So, and to clarify, the initial offer was that we could sit in the audience, and then we said, "Oh no, we'd really like to attend and speak." So it was sort of an offer that we're invited, and then they asked perhaps we would reconsider. And then I said, no, we'd really like to speak and be a participant in the forum. And then the offer was rescinded. And then we said, could we still sit in the audience? And they said yes. And so we did. We went and sat at the back and watched. And it was a pretty fiery forum. And, a lot of security. And it felt like there were measures taken to protect safety, which was unusual and sort of stressful at a forum. But I thought it was really important to go to hear from the community. Our goal has always been to say that we want to make ourselves available to hear what you have to say, even if it's difficult for us to hear. And that I feel a sense of responsibility that if I'm going to say I want to represent my community, that it's on me to go and listen to my community. And then, there are many diverse voices within the Jewish community. As we know, we have such a terrific team of people who are from the Jewish Greens who are supporting our campaign and leaning in, at all the right times and doing quite a bit of door knocking and that sort of thing as well. And so we wanted to be in the room, but it was a shame not to be able to put our position forward. So we're trying to meet with I've had a lot of personal conversations with people from the Jewish community who have actually approached us to sort of hear more about our position. And we're trying to meet with small groups from the community at all times just to say, well, this is where we stand. I think it's a very nuanced position. I think it reflects the complexity of the region and also people's wishes here in the electorate and to just at least have a conversation that's open. And even where there are points of clear disagreement about what we think and feel about things, I think it's still been really valuable to have that conversation and to stand as two humans in the same space of disagreement and still experience each other as humans. So, it's felt important to me.
Yeah. And as we mentioned at the time, it's important to note that there were some Jewish groups that criticised the decision to disinvite you. And
yes.
there is a diverse range of opinions and disagreement within the Jewish community about this stuff.
Very. And I've not had a conversation with anyone who doesn't want peace for the region. And I'm really proud that as a party, one of our 4 pillars is peace and nonviolence. And I feel that is, it makes us unique and it's so important. Has there ever been a more important message for this time?
I'm interested in how you sort of navigate this stuff because there was a profile from the Jewish Independent. They're doing sort of all these profiles on the various Macnamara candidates. And I read the profile and, a bunch of it was pretty even-handed. It seemed like it was a sincere conversation with you. It's just an extract. It says, Semmens, who was raised in the Christian church, does seem genuine in her concern for the Jewish members of her electorate, which she has also called home for almost a decade, and appears eager to combat anti-Semitism. If elected, she is pledged to provide a suite of social cohesion and safety measures, including security upgrades for religious institutions and improving anti-Semitism awareness and education. Thumbs up. We like this. But then it comes to this. But she defends the Greens' policy to ban military exports to Israel, claiming it is a solution that's in line with the self-determination of both Israeli and Palestinian people, whether that's a 1 or 2 state solution. And then, and this again, I'm quoting from the piece here, she also declines to condemn the participation of Greens MPs in pro-Palestinian protests. I think it's important to protect protests in this country, and I understand if it's an MP's wish to participate, I'm much more concerned about the brazenness of far-right and alt-right actors in Australia and around the world. So I'm just sort of, that framing of you refusing to condemn Greens MPs participating in a protest standing up for Palestine. What does that question look like when it's being asked to you by a journalist? Do you condemn people just participating in a peaceful protest against these war crimes that we're seeing on the other side of the world?
So it's a sort of a question then of what is anti-Semitism and what is endangering the community here. And my point that I was trying to make is that there is hate in this community, and it's not people protesting for peace. The hate in this community has been having boot camps on the Elwood foreshore, and there have been 4 of them in the last 18 months. And, since Elon's salute and, lots of sort of experiences around the globe that feel like fascism is asserting itself more confidently again. My feeling has been that we must combat hate and fascism where it is, not where there are sincere people who are trying to say we want peace and we want an end to suffering. And that those two things are really, the conversation is the same. I'm of the belief that peace begets peace and that fear begets fear, right? And so you can't call the pursuit of peace an act of fear. It's not. It's pursuing and promoting peace. And also, peaceful protest has played a part in stopping wars forever. In the Vietnam War, the peaceful protests around the Vietnam War were so important in changing the social tone on that war, and they were right.
Yeah.
We must protect this, and also I'm mindful that the actors behind demonizing peaceful protests are not only about this conflict, they're also actors that would like to prevent climate activists from protesting peacefully.
Yes.
The forces in the Advance Australia cohort are fossil fuel funded. If they're trying to create an antagonism against peaceful protest here, I would guess it's because they would like to ban all protest to prolong the use of fossil fuel in this world. And those are forces that need to be exposed for their relationship to this conversation, because they are playing a part in the way that this election has formed here in Macnamara. As you might know, Advance have dedicated millions to preventing the Greens from winning Macnamara and Richmond and Sturt, specifically named, and other seats. And their, billboards have been above our office for months now on this sort of scrolling digital thing. Ironically, some of my children's friends' parents told me they liked our new billboard. So clearly it's been a confused message. I'm not sure they're nailing the messaging.
Yeah, because I see this like, can't vote Greens, not this time. I'm like, did you ever vote Greens, motherfucker?
I know,
You're wearing an Advance Australia t-shirt. Were you really ever on board?
Yeah.
Come on.
Not this time, and not last time, all the time before that. But
so definitely I feel like it's very important to talk about what's really happening in this conversation. And I do think that there's a relationship with these pro-fossil fuel voices that are part of that conversation. And I think we need to talk about that too. When we're talking about protecting protest, that matters at an existential level.
Yeah. I think that's a very good point. I did want to, it's a difficult and interesting question for me around calling out, as you call it, genuine fascism and anti-Semitism. I saw there was a critique of the Greens around your campaign because of, I think they pointed to a flyer that maybe your campaign had distributed in the electorate that specifically as a priority talks about combating anti-Semitism. And we've had this conversation on the show where it's like, it's a fine line when we've got the government saying we need a special envoy for anti-Semitism, things like that, when a lot of what is being counted as anti-Semitism is not, in fact, anti-Semitism, but perhaps, pro-Palestine sentiment or calling out the state of Israel in their war crimes. But is there perhaps, you're saying that, there are real instances of neo-Nazis literally in Macnamara.
Yeah.
Is it more of an issue there than the rest of the country, perhaps? How do you
I think very probably yes. So that there is a known neo-Nazi in Elwood who flyered the suburb the other day with a message that literally said Australia for the white man.
Yeah.
And there are stickers on the light posts and things that say the same thing. So there is a movement here that is opportunizing the moment globally, using the flagrancy of what Elon did and the fact that it's not being called out or addressed, and saying that there's a window here in which we can be emboldened. And I actually think that the Greens were onto this a long time ago. The Victorian state Greens, they got an inquiry across in the state parliament into the alt-right, the rise of the alt-right, and they found a number of extraordinary recommendations came out of that, which we would like to adopt. because I do think that there is an emboldening of these groups in this area, and I think it is very real to this area. And like, for instance, in door knocking, I door knocked a family whose teenagers took the mezuzah off the door frame because they were afraid of identifying as Jewish. I know that there's been people in the school system where there have been incidences that are awful and frightening for kids. So the stats are certainly that there is a rise in these incidences. And because it's, there's 1 in 10 members of my community and my beloved friends and neighbours and who've experienced these things, we must address it in this electorate. It has to be something that is a conversation that we have. But I feel it's very important that we do have that conversation as well, so that we can identify what is the source of this hatred and what is not.
Yes.
And that is key. That is really key because, everyone deserves to feel safe in our community, and I am unequivocal on that, everyone. And, my friend's family had their business graffitied with gas to Jews, which is, that's really horrific. It's horrific. This is second-generation Holocaust survivor. In fact, we do not a first-generation Holocaust survivor living here in this community. This is where they've settled. So, the fear is certainly very real. And can be misused by bad faith actors.
Certainly, yes. But it's just like so clearly Greens business to me. Like, we are the anti-racist party. We have an anti-racist policy.
I know. And if you feel afraid to be yourself, that is, as I said to the Jewish Independent, and I wish that they put it in the article, if you feel afraid to be yourself, that is a very Greens concern. That is a very big area of concern and interest to us, that everybody is free to be themselves and to feel confident to be themselves culturally, racially, religious, or all of these things.
Yeah. I think it's telling, yes, like if you look at the neo-Nazis and the far-right part, organisations, are they campaigning for the Greens? Are they aligning themselves with the Greens? No, they're actively always campaigning against the Greens and often more aligned with, these right-wing groups that will then claim to be friends of the Jewish community.
Don't lift that rock because there's bugs underneath. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I agree. Yeah.
Well, all these wonderful arguments have fallen on deaf ears for the Australian Labor Party. We also got the stories that Josh Burns is running an open ticket. That is, he is not directing preferences on their how to vote cards. They'll say, vote one Josh Burns, and then, hey, who knows who's better or worse out of these other people who are running.
Just riff it.
It's just riff it.
So exciting.
So we surprised by that happening. It seemed like once it started being reported, it seemed like that was definitely the direction it was going. What does that mean for you and your campaign? How are you thinking about that?
I was deeply unsurprised. I was spiritually unsurprised. I feel really disappointed nonetheless. It's super disappointing. It genuinely risks handing the seat for the first time ever. I feel like the extraordinary thing that Josh has achieved is not to increase his vote, but to increase the probability of handing the seat to the Liberals. I think it's become, with this one fatal act, has become a Green-led marginal seat. So congratulations, Labor.
Really good stuff.
Withdrawn
really
from the competition. Yeah. And so, I think, and I don't know, but I think that probably there are many groups that have polled. I know Advance was somehow leaking their polls to the Herald Sun, which had us stonking it in. I think the polls were looking what we see in the data from door knocking, which is that we're in a really strong position to win the seat if Labor preferences flow to us in the order that they usually would. And I think that this is a reaction against that, paired with obviously difficulty that Josh is experiencing in his own community and the Jewish communities. So I know there have been strong calls to preference us last, and the Liberal fellow has preferenced us last. In fact, in the Senate, I think we're behind One Nation.
Cool.
Which is that's bold.
Are you serious? Are you fucking
One Nation,
serious?
the anti-racist party.
Your options are like a fabulous Senator Steph or One Nation, or Pauline Hanson's One Nation party. So
this is Benson Sola, who we talked about, who I didn't realise reading he was briefly a member of the Greens in his youth.
He was. I think he challenged. He won. He went for pre-selection against Alex Patel, and she won pre-selection.
Wow.
So yes,
Really?
in fact, I broke that news to Richard Di Natale over dinner, and he nearly spat his food out because I think Benson was in his office for a brief period of time too as one of his staff members.
Yes. I have heard that. Yes, he was in Richard Di Natale's office.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah.
Cool dude.
Yeah.
Cool
So,
And then Josh has got the number one position on the ballot, right? Like in the ballot draw, which is bad news for not ideal, I suppose. Donkey votes happens. And
yeah.
he's up there. Where are you? Where are you on there? Where's 27?
I'm in lucky number 3.
Okay.
Yep, that lucky number.
Yeah.
So, in good news for us, a donkey vote will preference us. So, I guess that's 1% of a preference. I'll take
Because
it.
the libs are below you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Therefore, yeah. As I said to Sky News on that day, we don't rely on luck. We do the legwork. That's the way we campaign. We don't leave things to chances, or we just go out there into the community and have the conversations that shift votes. And I will tell you that there is so much opportunity in the community to shift votes. Nobody is happy. It really does feel like our conversations are between and meh. And then people are like, well, I don't want so what? And meh, so then there's a real opportunity to say, how about, 50 cent airs? How about yay?
It was a yay.
It's like, meh, or yay. And this seat has been Labor for like 119 years. Since 1906, This has been a Labor-held seat. So let's try something new. If and meh won't cut it, let's try something new.
Yeah.
And that's me, by the way. That's I am the something new in this scenario.
You can be Sonya Semmens.
I know. I tried so hard to get Onya Sonya as a campaign slogan, but they wouldn't go for it.
Oh God.
Oh, that's really
Yeah, no, I think I agree with the people who stopped that. I'm sorry,
Really?
Sonya.
The t-shirts.
like it.
Think of the t-shirts. Yeah.
Sonya Semmens. Get the gays in,
That's nice. Writing it down. Yes.
Yes, queen. SonyaSemmens.com is the website to go to. Again, obviously, when people are hearing this, people are out there, they're on the polls, people are voting. Get out there and do it. If you haven't yet registered to help out on election day, that is really key. Obviously, if you can do pre-poll, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
But on the actual election day, if you can be there handing out how to vote cards, standing up for Greens values, staring down this nonsense scare campaign and fighting to get Sonya elected, I think that would be cool.
I think numbers will be particularly important in Macnamara because of that advance. They may very well pay people to stand there, I reckon. So more Greens shirts, more Greens people needed here in Macnamara.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes.
Yeah. We saw that with the by-election in Paran. So yes, please come on down. Strengthen numbers. Yeah.
Thank you for talking to us, Sonya. We are gunning for you. We're rooting for you. Good luck, comrade.
So much.
And whatever happens, you know that you've put everything that you've got into this thing. So congratulations.
That's the truth. Yeah. Group hug. Thanks, team.
Thanks, Sonya. Onya.
Sonya.
Yay! See? It really resonates.
You're
it's
right.
hard to forget.
It sticks.
Yeah, it sticks. This is the key. Sonia Kruger used it in her campaign, though, for the gold Logie. Her name's not even spelt right, so yeah.
Shots fired.
Serious danger to Australia.